Last year, I correctly predicted, both preseason and before the playoff, that Ohio State would win the national championship. And while it wasn't a hot take at the time, I'm back this year, I've crunched the numbers, so here's who I have taking the national championship this year. First thing, we got to build the bracket of who actually makes the playoffs. So here's who I have winning each of the Power 4 conference championships. In the SEC, Texas over Georgia. In the ACC, Clemson over Miami. In the Big 12, Arizona State over Texas Tech. And in the Big 10, Ohio State over Penn State. And then the 7 at-large teams I expect to be in the playoff this year: Notre Dame, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Penn State, Oregon, and Boise State. Now, when we do seeding for the playoff, this year is different. The top 4 seeds are not guaranteed to be conference champions, meaning a team like Notre Dame, who doesn't win their conference championship, can still slide into a top 4 spot and secure a first-round bye. And I think they do just that. But at the number 1 overall seed, I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think they're the Big 10 champions, and I think they at most have 1 loss on the season. I think Notre Dame's going to secure that 2 spot. They opened the year with tough games like Miami and Texas A&M, but after that, have 10 very winnable games. And I expect Jeremiah Love to be in the Heisman conversation and be invited to New York at the end of the year. But I think Notre Dame's going to finish the year on at least a 10-game win streak and CJ Carl find his rhythm. I think they'll be followed by Texas, SEC champions with at most 2 losses. And then at 4, Clemson. Cade Klubnik's going to dog walk the ACC conference this year. They're going to have an awesome record. The only losable games are LSU and South Carolina. But I think Clemson, as the ACC champs, is that final first-round bye with the 4 seed. Now, rounding out the final 12, based on the conference championship results and how I see this season playing out, the 5 seed is going to be Penn State, 6 seed Georgia, 7 seed Alabama, 8 seed Oregon, 9 Miami, 10 Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech might sound like a hot take to make the playoff until you remember they were the number 1 transfer portal class on 3 and have a senior returning quarterback. The Red Raiders are going to be a problem this year. Finishing out the top 12, 11 LSU, and 12 Boise State. We got to have a group of 5 school in there. I know it's the chalky pick. Their quarterback, Maddox Madsen's coming back. That's enough for me to lock Boise State into this playoff again. Now, this first round, now that we have the playoff bracket set up, I think Penn State cooks Boise and Happy Valley in round 1. I think LSU actually upsets Georgia in Athens. We finally get a mild-weathered game, and quarterback Garrett Nussmeier takes full advantage of the good weather there in Athens. I think Alabama overpowers Texas Tech there in Tuscaloosa, and Oregon dismantles the ACC Miami Hurricanes. Now, that leaves us with a final 8 of Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Clemson, and Penn State. The way the seeding works, we've got 1 seed Ohio State versus 8 seed Oregon. They don't meet in the regular season this year, so I think they'll meet in the playoff. But I think Ohio State takes care of business there. I think Alabama takes down an ice-cold Notre Dame team. Remember, Notre Dame will not play a conference championship weekend game, and they won't play a first-round game if they get the bye. So Notre Dame could be ice-cold there in round 2, and Alabama would take care of business. Then Texas is just too good for LSU. They'll win that game. The final one, Penn State will just be too strong for Clemson. This is simply a Big 10 over ACC play, but Penn State would beat Clemson. Then in our final 4, we have Penn State versus Ohio State, which will actually be their 3rd time facing off of the year, and Alabama versus Texas. Now, if you can't tell, I expect Ohio State to keep the train rolling from last year. I think they would take down Penn State here and end up once again in the national championship game. And I think Alabama would take care of business against Texas. Alabama has the type of talent to be shot out of a cannon come playoff time, when the second season really takes over. Alabama had an 89% blue chip ratio. Again, the blue chip ratio is like the God's metric when it comes to college football. It compares how many 4- and 5-star recruits you have to 2- and 3-stars. So the higher the blue chip ratio, the better your talent across the field. And Alabama having an 89 on the blue chip ratio is tied with Ohio State for the best in the country. So I'm banking on that to get both of those teams into the national championship game this year. Alabama versus Ohio State. And in college football, it's very hard to repeat as national champions. And Kalen DeBoer is going to have a huge chip on his shoulder. Alabama's brought in a ton of talent. Both of these teams have a new quarterback this year, but I think Ty Simpson and that offense get it done against Ohio State, and Alabama wins the national championship this year in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. Last year, we saw an 8 seed Ohio State use the opening round to build momentum and take off through the college football playoff. This year, I think we see the same thing from Alabama, who I have slotted as a 7 seed to get hot at the right time and win the national championship. I think Alabama can pull that off this year, even if they do miss the SEC title game. So I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide at plus 1,100 winning the national championship. Time will tell, but let me know who you have winning the national championship this year.